Marvelous. On JBS, as we celebrate Israel's 70th birthday, what better person to welcome back to JBS than Israel's Consul General in New York, דיין. And by the way, Danny is here now with a special guest of his own, his daughter Ophir. It is a pleasure to welcome you, and Danny, I can't thank you enough for in all you're doing today, and you're running from place to place to place. That you made a point of being here with us on this live telecast is wonderful. You've heard what דיין and Shachar has to say, but I want to ask you a similar type question. I'm not asking you as Consul General of the State of Israel. I'm asking you as a person. You've had a long, wonderful... By the way, where were you born?
Buenos Aires, Argentina.
And when did you go to Israel?
When I was 15.
So you grew up...
we were due to be the last Olim of 1970. Our flight was due to arrive to Ben Gurion Airport, actually Lod Airport. It wasn't even named Ben Gurion. On December 31st, 1970, at around 11:30 p.m. But it was an El Al flight, so we were the first Olim of 1971 because it was delayed.
Do you remember that moment?
Of course.
What did it feel like for you? You're 15 years old.
Yeah, I was 15 years old. I kissed the ground. I am not ashamed to say that. I kissed the ground of Eretz Israel. It was a dream come true. I knew as a child, I always knew that we eventually will make Aliyah, we'll move to Israel, to our ancient homeland.
You always
visited. Yes, I always knew that the day will come and we will do it. And yes, when I descended from the El Al flight, I actually kissed the ground.
That is lovely. All right, so here you are. It's the 70th anniversary. You're not a 15-year-old kid anymore. What's it mean to you, Israel turning 70?
It means everything. Look, I will tell you this. There are three ways of looking at this anniversary. The first is to take a still picture, a still photograph of Israel in 2018 and analyze it. It's a wonderful country, an amazing country, imperfect as any other country. The second way is to take two still pictures, one of 2018, one of 1948, and compare between both of them. That it's mind-boggling. It's completely incredible what we achieved in 70 years. And there is a third way, a film, not a still picture, a film that starts in the year 70 AC with the destruction of the temple and goes through Jewish history of 2,000 years of exile, persecution, massacre, oppression, discrimination. And then you understand what this means, that we are, as one of my friends wrote in the New York Times yesterday, the most lucky generation of Jews.
That is so wonderful. By the way, I am annoyed at myself that I didn't think of the connection of 70 CE, when ultimately Rome destroys the Second Temple and we are at that point exiled, and this is the 70th anniversary. That contrast, by the way, gives me chills. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, how come we didn't pick up on this?
Yeah, what's wrong with us?
70, this is Masada.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
the
story
meaning to
of
you,
Masada.
as you hear Danny talk about it?
It's the resurrection of the dry bones. It's the momentous fulfillment of a biblical prophecy. It's taking a moment from reality and understanding the vision of celestial interventions. There isn't any other way to explain this coming back from literally the dead of a country coming back to life in such an incredible way.
I will take you back to the rationalist that I am, and say that when you look at Israel that way, where we were and what way we did, what horrible way we went through, and then you see what we achieved today. I mean, all the imperfection, to deal with the imperfections instead of dealing with the big, amazing pictures, so it seems so petty.
Nonsense, Narishkeit, ridiculous. Okay, Ophir.
Yes.
First of all, aren't you proud of your father?
Of course.
You are
Not as I am proud of her.
I am sure you are, and there's a
father,
lot to be proud of. You're at Columbia University. You're a political science major.
True.
You're also very much involved with SSI, correct?
True.
Student Struggle for Israel. You're a different generation. It's important to hear from you. You heard what your father had to say. Pretend you didn't hear him. And just tell me, what's Israel's, how many times have you been to Israel?
Well, every day for the past, next week, 24 years. except for the almost year that I'm here.
That's all. You were born in Israel where?
In Ma'ale Shamron, it's a small community in the Samaria.
Okay.
Born and lived there until I moved here.
So what's it mean to you? 70th anniversary of the State of Israel.
Look, I am from a generation that had the extreme privilege of living in Israel, being born in Israel. I had the extreme privilege of taking a year before the army to volunteer for an entire year for my country. I had the privilege to be an officer in the IDF. And I had the privilege to come here to the United States and go to an Ivy League school, knowing that I have always a place to come back to, and my home is there, and there are people protecting my country. So it means the world for me to be able to sit here and protect my country from a different place with Students Supporting Israel at Columbia. And still know that anywhere I go, my country, my homeland is Israel, and always look forward to the next time I'm home.
That is beautiful. I asked you, Shachar, the question as well, but I'm now asking you.
Yeah.
I want a memory. I don't care if it's as a child, as a teenager. As you think about Israel, what moment, or moments for that matter, strike you and you carry them with you always that you feel are about Israel? Every one of us grows up, we have a life. But I'm asking you, in terms of the Jewish state, can you give me a memory?
It's going to be a little cliche.
Okay, it's
the
okay.
day I finished my officer's training school, we had our ceremony, and there's a tradition. It's like, actually, when you're an officer in the IDF, when you hear the tikva, you have to salute. And we got our ranks after the tikva. And then it was before the ceremony, and we told the director of the ceremony,
Where was
listen. It was in my officer's school. And I told the director, we all told him, listen, there is no way we're getting our ranks after the tikva. We have to salute in the tikva. He told us, you know what, okay, so tomorrow you're going to have a ceremony, a different ceremony in your units, and you can salute tomorrow in the tikva. But we didn't let it go for 2 weeks until this guy, the director of the ceremony, told us, you know what, I'll give you the ranks before the tikva so you can salute. And that is the most Israeli thing to me. To be proud and to not give up for this one opportunity to salute 5 minutes later, 5 minutes before you can actually do it. And in my officer's school, I had Jews, Muslims, Christian people, Jewish people, and all of us together felt it's so important for us to salute in the tikva, and that's the most Israeli moment for me.
Isn't that lovely?
I was smiling at every word. That was just, and I also was saying, I loved how she ended up by saying, that itself is so Israeli, right?
Yes.
That sense of resourcefulness and sense of patriotism and purpose and commitment and devotion. And Danny, you have a lot to be proud of.
Yes,
Yes, you-
definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
How beautiful it is to hear it. You know, sometimes we as adults, we have a tendency of looking down at the younger generation and
Yes.
said, oh, we understand. But our younger said they have no idea, no appreciation of a sense of history. And just sitting here and listening to Ophir, I am just blown away.
Yes, it's very, very impressive.
You know that an Israeli female minister just said a few days ago, without naming who she means, that Israel is ready already for a second female prime minister. I think she meant her.
Well, let's hope Israel would be ready in like 20 years from now. No,
But if it ever is true, you must announce on JBS.
no problem.
No problem.
Well,
I
Okay.
can do it now.
Ophir, we're going to show the film.
No problem.
Believe me, Mark Gollum
hold
will
me
take
accountable for
advantage of
that.
this moment.
I have no greater cause in the state of Israel. You can announce it now.
That's
I have
very
no other
sweet.
plans.
That's very sweet. You mentioned a moment ago that in your unit, it is multicultural. Very often Americans, and even American Jews, do not understand the extent of that cultural pluralism. I mean, I'm making a point of this, Denny. This is celebration. On JBS, we very often talk about the challenges confronting Israel. I'm not interested tonight. Tonight is all about celebration.
You're right.
Okay? And what I want to hear from you is how you would describe, for viewers who just don't understand, the extent to which you, as a young Jewish Israeli, are surrounded by a culture that is, in fact, diverse and embracing, and how you would describe it to those who have never experienced it.
Look, if there's something I've learned over the past year or so, is that no matter what I say, there's nothing like being in Israel. People can't really understand to the extent of the magnitude of that experience if they're not in Israel. But I'll try to describe it. I think what made my military service so unique is the fact that I had the extreme privilege to serve with Druze, with Bedouins. I served 2 years as an officer in the 80th Division near Eilat. My best friend was a Bedouin. I was one of the commanders in my unit. And his devotion to the state of Israel and his understanding that his faith and the faith of the Jewish people in the state of Israel are intertwined in a way that it's a really what we like to say about the U.S.-Israel relations, an unshakable bond. If he won't be there to fight for the state of Israel, nobody would. And it's his responsibility as much as it's my responsibility.
You know, if I'll add one thing, is you're right, there is nothing like being in Israel. But it's not always about the what, but very much about the how. Because if we stand up for that great ideal that's called Israel, it's embedded in who we are and how we carry ourselves in life, in how we interact with people, are we able to lend a hand, the problem-solving approach, the smile, all of that we are every day is a manifestation of Israel.
A smart person once called it hadar. It's a term that Z'bוטינסקי used to use to describe how we should be noble on the
Noble.
inside and out.
I think that Ophir is maybe the only person on earth that is a fifth generation disciple of Zev Z'bוטינסקי.
Really? Really? Is that, by the way, are you comfortable with Z'bוטינסקי also?
Of course.
Yes. Unfortunately, people don't know enough about him in America.
Actually, when I came to New York, I brought with me to my new office in New York only 3 posters, 3 pictures. One of Binyamin Zev Herzl, one of David Ben-Gurion, and one of Zev Z'bוטינסקי. I think those were the 3 giants of Zionism. And I want to say a word about the word Zionism. I think we have an obligation to make an effort to reivindicate the word Zionism, to reclaim the Z word. Look, Zionism is the most incredible, the most exciting, and also the most just national liberation movement of the 20th century. And, you know, I sometimes, when I want to suffer, I make a search on Twitter or Facebook in the word Zionism, and I see what things are, how it is vilified, distorted, what things are being said about this amazing movement. And I think we have a duty to reclaim that word, to reclaim the dignity, the honor of that word, which, if we are celebrating today 70 years of Israel, is because of that great visionary, that's his name, Binyamin Zev, Theodor Herzl, and his successors in the Zionist movement. For me, Zionism is a holy word, it's a sacred word. And I think we must do more to reclaim the place that this word deserves in our hearts.
Your reaction to that?
I love that.
Me too.
I'm such an admirer of Danny Dayan, and hearing that was so beautiful. Also, the 2 things that I did not put to connect before. One, I hope we didn't miss this, that Danny Dayan, if I'm not mistaken, your family was living in Buenos Aires when Eichmann was kidnapped by these.
That's correct.
So when he mentioned the El Al flight that brought him, I remembered that the very first El Al flight to Buenos Aires was to bring Eichmann back.
That's correct.
So that's one.
We didn't know that at the time.
You would not have known, but it's a great anecdote.
That's correct.
The other idea is.
By the way, the second El Al flight, there are no direct flights between Israel and Argentina, but the second was the flight that brought Prime Minister Netanyahu a few months ago to the first historic visit of a sitting Israeli Prime Minister to Latin America.
And the other thought was when we talked about Ophir and her father and Z'bוטינסקי, because we realized the range of the Zionist dream and ideology. My father was in Radom, Poland, and in gymnasium, in his high school class, he was a revisionist, Z'bוטינסקי follower, right? And then his son is sitting with you in New York and in New Jersey, and it makes me think of something that Shahar said a moment ago. I was very struck by, notice the language he used, something about a biblical prophecy, and he said something about there was another word.
The bones.
The bones, the resurrection, and you
bones.
said a kind of not an epiphany. Celestial. And I thought, the year 70, that year of the destruction of the temple really is the beginning of why Jews are all over the world. That really started the idea that then there were Jews that were in Rome. And from that point, they ended up in Fort Lee, right? I mean, we're everywhere. I mean, here we are, we're celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut. And we have Israelis. I'm sitting with Israelis, and I'm sitting with a present Reformed rabbi who has a television network on Jewish life. And we're in the United States, and JBS is covered all over the United States. And really, that really did start with this prophecy that Shahar said, because we wouldn't have been here. We would have not, not only are we celebrating Israel's 70th birthday in this new millennium, but we're celebrating it from this distance. Mm-hmm. And it is, when you think about this prophecy, it makes it even more extraordinary that we're spread all over the world and we're on this television show in the United States with Israelis talking about it.
I will tell you a very personal story. My father crossed for the first time in his life an international border inside a potato sack. The year was 1921, and the border was between his native Ukraine, and Poland. And they escaped the pogroms. And they put him in a potato sack. He was 6 months old, muffled his mouth, and opened on the Polish side to see if he's alive. And then, a few decades later, I cross a border, the virtual border between the United States and Israel, with a diplomatic passport, in an aircraft with a Hebrew-speaking crew, with the Magen David in its tail. I have a diplomatic passport with the emblem of the State of Israel, the menorah, and the policemen that come to escort me and not to persecute me. And my daughter knows nothing but the self-confidence that growing in an independent, sovereign Jewish state gives you. So those are 3 generations of my family, but that is also the incredible story of the Jewish people in the 20th or 21st century.
Can I just have the record reflect that the camera was not on Ophir at the time, but she was weepy.
It was very sweet.
I've heard this story so many times that it makes me emotional every single time.
To watch your daughter's facial reaction to hearing about her grandfather and father was really quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm. All right, before I let you go, I want you to tell our audience, what does Dayan feel is the most important thing you would love Americans to understand about Israel that you feel they don't understand well enough, especially now on the 70th anniversary of the State of Israel?
I want American Jews and Israeli Jews to understand that we have a common fate. Look, I think that in this generation we have 2 extra mitzvot, extra obligations. One is to strengthen the state of Israel, to guarantee the existence as a strong state, and the second, the continuity of the Jewish people. And it will be a tragedy if we, in Israel, are exclusively responsible for the existence of Israel, and American Jews exclusively responsible for the continuity of American Jewry. We need, excuse me to use a cross here, but a cross responsibility. The Israeli Jews have to be responsible for the state of Israel and for the world Jewry, and vice versa. If we choose different paths, only Israelis will care for Israel, only American Jewry will care for American Jewry, that will be a tragedy, but I hope it will never happen.
Tani, I can't thank you enough for stopping by. Ophir, thank you so much. I wish you both kol tuv v'hatzlacha and mazal tov on this very special day.
Thank you so much. I can guarantee you that I will forever remember this interview. I think this is our first joint interview.
That is together. It's wonderful.
Love it.
There you have it, the voices of Dayan and his daughter, Ophir. Another